Okay, so in today's video, we are going to be looking at the profitability that we've actually earned from the Avalon Nano. We're going to be comparing that to kind of the profitability of what is kind of projected from the Avalon Nano on various different websites, and then give you the real figures, I guess. So the Avalon Nano, this is actually a mini S3 or 3S. So this is the upgraded version, and as you can see down in there, it is 6.34 terahash. So the case has actually been taken off, and we kind of discovered it doesn't really matter because it's running based off a temperature inside the actual board right there. So there was a temperature sensor and it was clipped in here, but I don't think that actually did anything in general because we heated it up and it still didn't blow the fans anymore. So I don't really think that that is conducive to anything. It's more something reading the temperature on the chip by here. But the one thing I have done with this that I haven't done on any of the other solo miners is actually stick it onto a pool. And the reason for that is just because I wanted to create some content around the actual profitability of it. And so we've let it run for, I think, over a month now. So we should have good figures. But there's a lot of things that we plan to do with this. Firstly, we plan to get rid of this power supply because it's really hot. I know that's maybe part of the design features, or I've heard it rumored that it's part of the design features. So the power supply is really hot and we want to plug it into our own power supply. So I think the best or easiest way is just to cut this USB-C cable and then wire it into our 12-volt power supply. And then the second thing is work out the fans. So we want to be able to actually attach something that has fan control. So we'll let the actual board cool down more by turning these fans to the highest speed, and that should kick in more hash rate. At least that's kind of what we're assuming. So the OS on it is obviously closed source. We don't really know how it's functioning in terms of the temperature and what terahash it's supposed to hit. So if you haven't seen one of these, they have three modes. You've got high, you've got medium and low, obviously different power ranges in terms of 90 watts, or I think it's 60 watts for the low, 90 for the medium, and then 130 for the high that you see in there. And the low one has about 3.5 terahash. The medium one is 4 to 5 terahash, and then the high one is 6.34. But one thing that I want to note, and this is why we're trying to switch the power supply as well, is because the watts in there say 132 watts, and this power supply is only rated up to 140. So we're actually more than the 20% rule in terms of the power supply, and that's probably why it's actually very hot. It's actually hotter to touch this than it is to put your finger just on the grills there, which is interesting to see. As I said, we are going to get into the profitability, and we'd like to see how much profits this has made whilst mining compared to the calculators that you see online. First thing I want to note, but you'll see it on the screen anyway, is that we were on the medium mode for quite a while mining with this. So I think it was a month before we switched over to the high mode, because we were going to switch the power supply, as I said. So we can kind of give you figures of what you would be earning on medium mode and on the high mode as well. So let's actually get into the numbers, and I'll throw you over to the computer screen now. But before that, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Crypto Miner Bros.
Since 2018, CryptoMinerBros.com has been the premier site for top-tier crypto mining hardware, earning the trust of miners across the globe. The prices displayed on their site cover shipping and DDP straight to your doorstep, ensuring no unexpected costs at checkout. They deliver to over 100 countries and even provide lower invoicing options to help you cut down on customs fees. Payment is a breeze with options like direct bank transfer or cryptocurrencies including Bitcoin, USDT, or Ethereum. With over 250 ASIC options, they stock some of the channel's favorites like the bitaxe Touch, and the Avalon Nano3S. Join tens of thousands of happy customers who rely on CryptoMinerBros.com for dependable hardware fulfillment, clear pricing, and a top-notch service. Check out CryptoMinerBros.com today, link in the description. So as I said, this is the Avalon 3, or the one that we're using is the 3S, sorry, and
This is the original one, which I believe is a lower terahash version. If we go down here, it might say what the terahash is on it. So maximum output is 4 terahash on this lower version. And I think that a lot of people got these and then they started to add on to their collection the 3S. I have done videos about this before, but this is probably one of the cheapest Bitcoin miners to get into. I know it's not open source, so hash rate to price ratio is actually really, really good on the lower end of Bitcoin mining. So if it's kind of like your first jump into Bitcoin mining, I definitely recommend the Nano3S because the amount of hash rate you have to work with is great. And I know on the channel we do talk about bitaxe mining, but a lot of the bitaxes still, I kind of feel like the price is kind of high, because if you buy a gamma that's maybe $110, and then if you want to get the same hash rate as the Nano3S, you've got to buy 6 of them. So you're looking at around $600. So when you buy one of these, you get 6 terahash, well, slightly more, for around $300, so half the price of 6 gammas. Altogether, I think it's the best jump into cryptocurrency mining. So your first miner ever should probably be either a bitaxe, which is a smaller one, or an Avalon Nano3S. Or if you can't get the 3S version, I believe that these are still being sold by a lot of suppliers. So the Avalon Nano 3, I think they're going for around $150 or $170. But they did vary when they were first selling them from $99 to $129. But as they go out of stock, maybe more people are selling them for a bit of a premium. But this is the one that we're using today. I know it specifies at 6 terahash, but you get slightly more. And with the 3 different modes, the only thing that I really don't like about it is that you don't get to choose your ASIC frequency and core clocks for the actual chip. And you only get 3 modes, so it'd be nice to see kind of more modes out there, maybe performance, like a higher performing mode that can actually push as much hash rate out of these chips as possible, kind of like overclocking on the bitaxe, things like that. Because the potential is probably slightly higher than this. It's probably around 7.2 terahash, something around that range, because the chips can handle it and the cooling is less efficient on these because they're supposed to be used as heaters, which isn't great in terms of terahash, but it is good for, trying to recoup some of the heating cost that these are actually used for. So now let's get into how much we've actually mined on this. So we were using Brain's pool to mine with this. We could have used a different pool that has lower rate, but I believe Brain's pool has a very, very low payout ratio or payout minimum. And that's kind of why we used it. And that's probably why they charge 2.5% on the fee side. So the payout is 0.002, which is around $23, $24. And I'll show you how long that's probably going to take. I don't think anything else has that kind of payout, even if you keep going down here. So pool forever, but that's a solo pool, so it wouldn't really matter. A lot of them have 0.01, so those might be good as well. And I believe Brains do lightning payouts as well on top of that. But anyway, that's what we were using today. So here is the dashboard, and we can see our one worker on the dashboard right here. The reason that I've got this chart up, because this is currently the day we switched over. As we said at the start of the video, we switched from the medium mode over to the high mode. So this is the medium mode here, where you're averaging about 4 to 5 terahash. And then this is the high mode switch over right here, where you're averaging anywhere from 5.9 up to 7.38. I do want to note as well, it's not terribly accurate on the Avalon Nano screen, your actual hash rate. Because with the bitaxe you get that refeed of hash rate that basically refreshes every 5 seconds. But with the Avalon Nano, it doesn't actually refresh on the screen. So poolside is probably a little bit better to look at what hash rate you're looking at. Obviously it does average out, as you can see there, to 6.34. Now on the screen it was 6.23, I believe. So there's a slight variation in that. You can also see our rewards per day here have actually changed since we switched over to the high mode. So this is medium mode, all of these, and then this is high mode on this one right here and going onwards. So we can actually click into that and I can show you what the rewards were for the last days that we've been mining.
So I do want to say that this date does not count because that was when we were actually making a video, but you can see 920 sats on there. But for the rest of it, we've been mining since the 6th of the 6th. So that's around 2 months that we've been mining with the Avalon Nano. And up until the 24th, I believe, if we look here, where is it? Right there. Up until the 24th, we were on medium mode. And then at the 24th, we switched over. So it's been 3 weeks since we switched over from medium to high mode. So at the medium mode, you are getting around 200. That's the average that you're getting on this. If we go to page 4, you're getting around 230, 240 sats per day. And then when you go over to the high mode, if it shows it right here, you can see that jumps. So 238, and then it jumps up to around 310. And here is the first page. So you're averaging around 300 to 310 within that range on the high mode. Bitcoin's difficulty is looking like it's increasing quite a lot lately just because of the price action on Bitcoin. So more people are throwing rigs on. And there's no point wasting the terahash that we can utilize currently on the Avalon Nano. So over 2 months, with around 1.5 of it being on the medium mode, which is around 4 to 5 terahash, and then around 3 weeks worth of mining on the high mode, we can see our rewards, which are here. So this is overall balance that we've actually earned, and that is 0.0017750 BTC, and that's an equivalent of $21.04. One thing that I didn't mention at the start of the video, or you might already know on the channel, we basically fund all of our mining operations for solo mining and for if we want to pool mine by the sponsorships of the videos and the ad revenue from YouTube. So that's how we continue to do it. Because we're in the UK, the electricity price is just not great. So that's how we fund the power consumption of all these machines, is through YouTube sponsorships and the ad revenue. But overall, we have earned $21 around that. And the payout, as I said, is 0.002 on Brains, which is going to take us, if we do a quick calculation here, this gives us, I think it's around 2,250 that we actually need to make up to get to that. So that is going to take, I think if we divide this by 0.00000310, let's say that's what we earned, that's going to take us about 7.25 days to actually get to our payout at the current rate that we are paying out. So overall, the time scale, I would say, is maybe 3 months for a payout. Probably say it takes around 2 and a bit months past that. So 2.5 months, I'd say, for you to get a payout on Brains Pool at the current price and at the current payout availability. So we don't actually have it set up yet, but we can set it up to have it through Lightning. If you see here, you can have it on chain. So you can choose a wallet, create new wallet, whatever you want to do, or you can have it through Lightning. So it's kind of up to you. As I said, the threshold is 0.0002 for getting that out. I don't know what it is on Lightning though. It might actually be different on there. So somebody can let me know in the comments. I haven't actually set it up because I'm just letting this run in the background, hoping that we can accumulate a little bit more than this across the whole year. So if we project this out for a year, we could say maybe $70 for the rest of the year is what we're going to earn overall, and then we'll probably withdraw that at the end of the year at around December time. So we want to actually talk about how accurate these figures are as well. When we come into this, let's just say that the average is 310 sats that we're actually earning per day. When we bring that over to a calculator, you can see that we kind of are around that. Because this is in dollars, it doesn't actually display past the 2 decimal points. You can see that the profit, even at a power cost of 13 cents per kilowatt hour, is not profitable. This is one of the main things that I don't really like about it, is that there's probably way more room for efficiency in the Avalon Nano if we had access to the OS, and that would allow us to make these more efficient and maybe even turn them profitable at some point. But here's a mining calculator that does display it back to here, and it's actually very accurate in terms of how much we're earning. So this would be based on the current price of Bitcoin and the current difficulty. We can go back here and we can go to, let's just click into reward history here. And for the last day, this was previous to this day, is 306. And then on the calculator, you have 307. So very accurate. The only thing about mining calculators is they aren't particularly accurate as soon as you start to up the terahash. So once you get into the 100 terahash range, the fluctuations are actually pretty big on what you're actually mining per day versus the calculator and what that is saying. Because there's a fluctuation in hash rate that's so much around that 100 range, you don't really get a particularly accurate figure on how much you would be earning. But right there, that's actually a very good figure and a very good estimation of what we would be earning. And then we can actually take it back to the 4.9 terahash, and that was for the medium mode, and that would equal around 238. So let's go back there and let's go to the medium mode, which it should display here, and that's around, even at the top one, 238, 240, 239. So in these small incremental ranges, you can actually see that these are fairly accurate. But I know that everyone wants to learn about the profitability of these, see if they're worth it to buy, but truly they are going to be used as a heater. If you use it for that purpose and you actually use the heat somewhere, I'm sure you'll get more utilization out of it. And across the year, let's say if you mine for a whole year, you would probably gain back, at least on the high mode, I want to say around $120. So if you bought this for $300, the ROI time is probably around 2 years and 6 months, I want to say, if you were constantly running this to a pool. And then if you use the heat for something, then you get that extra recuperation backwards. Things that I have seen use cases for these is small heating of like reptile enclosures. Those are the main ones that I've seen. So reptiles obviously need heat and they use heat lamps and stuff like that. But you can actually use this because it does output quite a lot of heat, if you can even feel it. And plus, I don't think the power supply is supposed to put out that much heat, but it definitely does. But they are great for colder countries. If you want to heat up a small room, I would say that this would actually make a difference. Even I can see the difference with all of our miners that we have here. In the summertime, you get probably a 6 degree temperature increase, ambient temperature in just the room. If I shut the window and I shut the door, you can get this room really hot that we're using. And I'm also assuming in the winter we can kind of transfer that over and get this room very hot and maybe actually save a little bit on the electricity price because you're heating up one room compared to, having to heat it with a radiator. So it's interesting and probably should be using the heat for something. Otherwise it's just wasted heat. But our channel is more focused on solo mining and not necessarily the generation of heat and using it for something useful. But I have dabbled with the idea of using heat for something. I just don't know any ideas to practically put together to use any of our miners for it. Because it's such a hassle to actually put it together, it would only work on a large scale. I've seen other use cases, not for the Avalon Nano, but for Bitcoin mining. I would say in greenhouses. So you want greenhouses to be warm, so you heat them up with Bitcoin miners in the winter. There's also spas and bathhouses that use them as well. So there's some interesting cases of using heat instead of actually going for profitability on these things. But overall, that's how much we mined. And as I said, we are going to get a payout very soon, or hit the payout threshold. So that's good. We can always withdraw that whenever we want. In terms of mining, it's fairly accurate to what we're displaying, but as I said, there is up and downs. One thing about the Avalon Nano and that Brains Pool doesn't display is the difficulties that you're actually hitting. So you could put this up to a pool, like a solo pool down here, that you would display the difficulties that your miner's hitting, and potentially it would show you if you're getting anywhere close to a Bitcoin difficulty or maybe even a Bitcoin Cash. I know Red Panda Mining hit a Bitcoin Cash block on one of these, but I don't know if there's any figures on if an Avalon Nano Mini or Nano 3S has actually hit a Bitcoin block yet. I'm willing to bet that it hasn't, because they haven't been around for that long, and I think a lot of people are solo mining with them, but a lot of people are also pool mining, so they wouldn't know if they hit a block or not. As I said, that's kind of the true profitability of mining with the Avalon Nano. If you want to see any profitability for maybe like the Nerd QX or the bitaxe, I've kind of done a profitability video on the bitaxe already, but the Zybit 8 and the bitaxe Hex, I can also do a video on those, and we can show you how much we're actually earning from those, because I don't think that they're necessarily listed in terms of the profitabilities that you're expected to see from one of those machines. I know a lot of people talk about Bitcoin mining and they talk about the profitability, but that would be for things like ASIC miners. The Avalon actual full brand, like the miners right here, they already have kind of profitability charts. And I'm assuming that these do as well in the home section, so the Avalon Q, Avalon Nano, and the Mini 3. If you want to see me get any of these, just let me know and I can try sort something out. But also, if you want to see profitabilities on the Zybit 8 that we have, or the bitaxe Hex, leave that in the comments below. Make sure to like the video and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.